this moment in time, it's more important than ever. I'm sure you'd all agree that we have spaces where we can talk about what's happening globally to LGBTQIA+ rights, and that we can share stories and we can share and show solidarity to each other. I'm particularly pleased that my good friend, the Minister for Equalities, Neil Griffith, will address us today. And I'm looking forward to also hearing from Barbaros Şansal, to my right here, who's a Turkish fashion designer, but is here because he's also a prominent activist for LGBT plus rights, well known for his activism related to social and political issues in Turkey. And we also have with us Lukas Sieper. I hope I pronounced that right, Lukas. Lukas is involved in numerous initiatives related to human rights, transparency and democratic participation, and is also the Vice President of the European Parliament's LGBTQIA+ intergroup. So you're all very welcome. I'd like to thank many organisations and in the UK and internationally that are in the room tonight. And I'm not going to go through them all because I'll miss somebody out, I'll offend somebody. So you're all very welcome. Thank you for coming. So globally, Globally, we are facing a concerted pushback on LGBTQ+ rights that's coordinated and funded by the far right and by hate. There are too many examples to mention, but I am going to touch on a few. So it's now been around 2 months since Hungary passed a law banning all LGBTQIA+ public assemblies, a clear violation of fundamental rights under EU law. And I've just arrived back from here in Parliament from a Council of Europe Equalities meeting that I've been at, say, just this morning, where we referred this decision to the Venice Commission, which is a body that will make a ruling on it, or a ruling on if it is compliant with EU law. But of course it isn't legal. And that legal redress and challenge to their ruling will take a long time, these things always do, but also not stop the escalation in hate, the media rhetoric, or the fines that have now been raised, I heard this morning, to €200 per person if they attend Budapest Pride on the 28th of June. And I've been in touch with the organisers of the Pride to show solidarity. And they are encouraging people to attend and make this the biggest Pride ever. We've seen protests in Parliament, people setting off flares and widespread outcry against this decision. So if any of you are able to go to Budapest on the 28th of June, fantastic. I wish I was. I have something else on, otherwise I would have been there. I was in Budapest earlier this year, meeting with all politicians, and I met with some LGBTQI politicians and the leader of the group in the Budapest Parliament. So I'm rather sad that I can't be there. I'm pleased to hear that you will be. In Belarus, discrimination, violence and hate speech are increasing, forcing many into exile. Both the UN and the EU have condemned the escalating crackdown on LGBTQI+ rights and human rights defenders in Belarus. The Council of Europe passed a resolution calling for Georgia to repeal its anti-LGBTQI law, which severely restricts information about LGBTQI people and directly harms their rights and their freedoms. And we've seen attacks on LGBT+ rights in Italy, with Italy removing same-sex mothers' names from their children's birth certificates, and Italian LGBTQI people facing a surge of violence, with 4 hate attacks reported in recent weeks. Again, as part of my role on on the Council of Europe, I was due to take a delegation of parliamentarians to Italy to talk about this, and in particular to talk about the abhorrent so-called conversion practices. And the Italian government have refused me entry, saying that they've had enough of my finger wagging. I have to say that if I'm making some kind of impact, then that can't be half bad, can it? I will leave Barbaros to focus on Turkey, but there we've seen a crackdown on LGBTQ plus rights, authorities detain journalists. It is tough. Yeah. And a trans activist, Erkin, whilst pushing anti-LGBTQI laws restricting legal gender recognition, trans healthcare and free speech, mirroring what's happening in Russia and Hungary. And of course here in the UK, we have the Supreme Court judgment that is unworkable, discriminatory, and has led to trans people living in fear and cis women being kicked out of women's toilets. So there is some great work being done by ministers. There's certainly one sitting very close to me. On a fully trans-inclusive ban on abhorrent so-called conversion practice, adding LGBTQ to the list of aggravated hate crime and on IVF. But it is being overshadowed by comments around the Supreme Court judgment from the front bench and by what is seen by many as a rowing back from the Prime Minister and others on their support for the LGBT plus community. Whilst there is a lot of negativity and pushback at levels we have not seen for a while, there is also a lot to be hopeful about, and we have to try and remember that as well. Trans History Week in the UK, which ended just yesterday, had double support from parliamentarians this year in a motion that I put to the House, and Marty, who's here tonight, and others held a number of really successful events raising the profile of trans history, trans plus history. And we've seen global responses to the hate, huge numbers of people getting together to find out how we work together to defend our rights, to push for equality and to support each other. We held a successful Lesbian Visibility Week, globally with a focus on rainbow families in all our diversity, with events in Italy, in the UK, in US, in Malta and many others. And meetings like this today here in the UK Parliament, where, as I said before, we can get together, organise and show some solidarity. So thank you all again for coming, and I think it's about time I hand it over to our first speaker, Minister for Equalities, Griffith.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Kate, and thank you very much for all that you do, because that work is absolutely invaluable, and I'm sure that you will wear it as a badge of pride that the Italian government recognises you. Obviously what we want them to do now is to reverse that decision and to let you in. I do obviously acknowledge the concern there has been about the Supreme Court judgment, and if anybody wants to talk to me about that afterwards, I will be rushing off. But obviously this meeting is about the global focus, and I just want to reiterate very, very strongly that we remain absolutely committed to our global programme of standing up for LGBT rights, and that does include some specific support for trans rights globally. So our LGBT plus rights programme supports the human rights of all LGBT plus people, and specific work supporting trans and gender diverse people includes supporting trans people fleeing persecution in Eastern Europe, tackling violence against LGBT women in sub-Saharan Africa, and promoting human rights compliant laws and policies that protect trans and gender diverse people from violence. Now, some of you will know that we actually have a minister in the Foreign Office, Lord Ray Collins, who also has as his remit international LGBT plus rights and engagement. and a lot of the work that he does is very sensitive, as you can understand, and often behind the scenes, you know, talking quietly to people, trying to move things forward. And I don't need, you don't need me to remind you what Kate has just said, but unfortunately we have seen these cold winds blowing through the international scene and sadly influencing some of the countries. I mean, you know, you'll be very, very aware that a lot of the laws that exist are sadly from our colonial past, and it's in some of those countries in particular that we've seen a resurgence of prejudice and rolling back of rights, and you know, that work does very much continue under Lady Collins. We've also, as you know, we've got a certain amount of funding which goes towards programs that we have on LGBT rights, and I know there's been a lot of concern about where there might be cutbacks, and I'd like to just reassure you that we are trying very hard to protect those budgets. And there's one particular programme that some of you may know about, which is the programme which is specifically in some African countries and Pacific and Caribbean countries. It's the Equal, Safe and Free Fund, and it's particularly dealing with some very fragile situations. I've also met with the group. Some of you may have been at the meeting, the Curing Atrocity Prevention meeting that we had in February as part of the LGBT History Month activities, again looking at the violence prevention strategies that need to be absolutely inclusive of LGBT plus people. The forum that I shall be attending next week has one of those great long titles that only international committees can come up with. It's the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia Forum that will be meeting in Malta. And the theme this year, again, one of those great long titles, is Equality and Inclusion in respect of sexual orientation, gender identity and expression and sex characteristics in a transforming Europe. So we are very much going to be front and centre of international activity. We're not shying away, and there'll be an opportunity there, obviously, for me to meet with a number of representatives. Some of you will be familiar with, I'm sure Kate will be, from the Council of Europe and other organisations, as well as NGOs. So I think these are, you know, clearly, obviously, just a small snapshot of some of the things that we are doing on an international basis to stand up for LGBT rights and to make sure that we continue that Foreign Office support for the programmes that we have out there supporting the international community. So I think I'll stop there, but clearly if there are questions and things that people would like to ask, then you would be very welcome.
Okay, thank you so much, Nia. I should have said earlier, so if I can just say, Idris is someone here taking pictures. If there's anybody that particularly doesn't want to be in photographs that I imagine could go out on social media, etc., can you just make yourself known so we can make sure that that's handled correctly. Okay, thank you, Nia, so much. And I plan to be out in September with my Council of Europe colleagues, and it just so happens to coincide with Pride in Malta, which is a lucky coincidence, or maybe not so. But thank you so much. Now we're going to come back to Barbaros. I've already given you an introduction, so please, the floor is yours.
I will start with the Pride and history in Turkey. Actually, we have to go back, focus on Ottoman Empire age, where LGBT community was not criminalized. Instead, has been giving lots of values, including the tulip age of the literature period, was really shining star being an LGBT and having different sexual orientations. But with the setup of the Republic of Turkey in 1920s and adapting the Russian and the Swiss laws had not been criminalized in Turkey. But somehow in 70s, before the military revolution in 80s, it was gotten very normal and very understandable to be gay and being seen and etc. But with the we've been on clubs and streets, but late 70s, the government officials started the operation, collecting the LGBTQI+ people from the bars and streets, shaving their hair, jailing them for periods, and targeting them and exposing them on the public media. With 1980 revolution, actually, we've been not criminalized exactly, but a huge pressure started to come on us. When it was 26 years ago, me and 3 friends of mine, we were just attending the first Pride of Turkey from the Istiklal Street where the Galatasaray school is there. We were able to step on the 4 steps and we were not allowed to go any further, so they took us to the buses and to the police stations. But somehow, with the non-governmental organizations and other groups, associations, we managed to make the Turkish Istanbul Prides larger and larger every year. And there was no problem by the year 2013, which was the period of occupying Gezi Park. So we were able to reach 70,000 people for the Pride in the center of Istanbul, including Listak, LGBT persons' families, other groups, all kind of orientations, and the Erdogan regime was very afraid of that big scene and decided to ban the Pride totally. So since then, we were not able to make any Pride anymore. It was 2015 with the Dutch ambassador of Turkey. We had a meeting in the consulate of Holland in Istanbul, and we invited the security director of the Amsterdam police, because Amsterdam Pride made on the channels is another idea. So Dutch government decided to sponsor us to rent the boats and make the Pride on the Bosphorus. But some of us, our friends, were complaining because they cannot swim. That's very cruel behavior. So another option that I would manage, instead of Taksim Square, there was another opportunity which I managed with my connections from the other side of the Taksim to the very fashionable area called Nişantaşı, where the government house is over there. That I get a permission for that, but our groups insist on being on Taksim Square and making the parallel again. So this we couldn't make it. And since then, last 5 years, we can put that period, the regime has become more aggressive and more criminalized all the gay life and the homosexual communities in Turkey, unless if you are pro-regime. If you are by the government side, you can have an iftar table in the palace of Erdogan, and with the Holy God's name and with the Quran scenes as a transsexual, you will be accepted if you support the government regime. So criminalizing and discrimination has divided the even LGBT movement to 2 in Turkey since then, so we are facing lots of difficulties. And when I was in Rome for the No Peace Without Justice group, which is working with the International Human Rights Criminal Court, we've been decided to support the LGBT communities all around the world, and we decided what we can do, which you have mentioned, the Budapest, right? As a No Peace Without Justice groups, we will all participate all around Europe, including the Stephen Lehman from German Parliament, which is the head of the queer group. We prepare out 200 euros. We don't ask for money. We don't ask for money, so you have to be seen. That was the story of Turkey changing the rights totally upside down, but protecting some people's rights in which they support the regime. And then we understood that LGBT community rights are not just the orientation rights. As far as the minister mentioned, the Supreme Court decisions of UK was really surprising for us. But also European Human Rights Framework, which is the relevance of European Convention on Human Rights, particularly Articles 3, 4, and 5, which is, we can describe this recent developments that the role of freedom of speech and gender equality advancing LGBT right, but also it's the same thing that protecting human body without permission that we cannot touch, which will stop the criminalizing discrimination and also torture, which is another important issue. In this frame, being with others description, being other doesn't mean you don't belong to society. We have to watch this situation not only just in human society, we have to go through the nature to understand clearly. The different sexual orientations, animals which they activate, the other animals doesn't bother them or doesn't target them. That comes from the creation. 6% of the all living creatures has this behavior, different orientation of the others. So in this, we can put it as we've been hashtagging it for a long period, which is love wins. Instead of teaching people and provoking people on hate, instead of this, we should hate and craven. We should present love and respect. We should be careful in the beginning of the 21st century not to provocate more those far-right groups in the governments, because I can tell you, even at the moment in the Turkish parliament, as a member of parliament, and in the Islamic party, I have gay friends. But they're inside the cupboard for certain reasons. So we don't have to put light inside the cupboards. We don't have to open the cupboards and look who is in there. Instead of that, we have to be seen more with our professions, with our activism, with our international relations networks. So I think with this, we can explain to the society, which is manipulated by the governments and the media. Media is helping a lot to the governments on this. So we can change the situations upside down, not making people respect for all the LGBTI+, all the others groups and the properties. For that, we don't need lots of funds or money. Personal behavior brings much more things if we can create better connection and networks internationally. And in some cultures, sexual orientations will accept it very normally and blessed. In some cultures, actually not. But when you look to the histories of these societies, it's parabolically, it's always changing. Sometimes you are in the ground, sometimes you are on the floor. So I believe with the age of communication and digital revolution, we are just about to understand the behavior of human being, not just the sexual orientations or beliefs, which is the religion is very big effective on that issue sometimes. And also, we have to understand each other. So we have created a slogan for this: make love with your mother tongue, make war with your enemy's tongue. So communicate is important. I don't want to give more nasty things about Turkey, which you are. Actually, the day before when I was coming to UK, why I started from Cyprus, I have been taken under custody again for an hour. I missed the plane. That's very normal for me. Every 15 days I basically in Turkey. They're questioning me and leaving me. So I used to it, yeah, actually. I have been lynched at the airport and put in a cell with isolation for 56 days because I criticized the government. Well, I come out with a book. So that's I come out with a book. So as I mentioned again before I bring it over. love always wins, hate always loses, which we are in this week in a victory day for the United Kingdom. We know from the history what the hate brought to the humankind. There are many developments going on in the Middle East right now, including the Cyprus issue. Cyprus is going to be back to the Federation soon. That's always I leave there, which Mr. Nikos, Mr. Valides, and Mr. Tatar, and we are talking this. Thanks God, there is no discrimination about sexual orientation in Cyprus. This colonial law has changed 6 years ago. It was criminalizing. One Minister of Economy of the Greek Cypriot registration has been arrested for that, and the world was talking about that. So we changed the law, managed. Marriage is not possible in the north, but partnership registration by the mayor is possible in the south. We've been also working, and another example before I finish, Ehefurale, which is for Switzerland. We've been making big campaign, Equal Marriage. In Switzerland, you can get married officially. You can even adopt children in same sex, but you were not allowed to marriage in the church in Switzerland. Same as here. And then in the Bern Parliament, a group of Conservative Party has not refused to pass the law because Swiss people has churches that pay taxes on them, where they baptize as lifelong payment, like a credit card payment. So me, with a lot of friends, we made a campaign for referendum. Before the referendum, the support of the society was 35%. But in the referendum, we got the result of 78%. So wake people up, tell them we are not disease, we are not microbes or viruses, we are humankind. And the sexual orientation can change or revoke any time in life, depends on the situation, of the person, of the pocket, of the jacket. So thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbaros. And you're right, love does always win. Although we don't particularly love your government right now. We love your country. I've been to your country in Istanbul many times, and it's a wonderful place.
I had to leave 5 years ago. I closed my business, selling my properties to Cyprus for a safer life.
So I'm sorry that you've
No, I'm happy
had to do that, but thank you for all you do for our community globally.
Globally, yeah.
Thank you so much. Next, I would like reintroduce Lukas.
Thank you very much. I would like to start by saying how much more beautiful this parliament is than the UK parliament.
Brussels.
Yes, no idea. So as my name is Lukas Sieper, I'm a member of the European Parliament from Germany. I'm Vice President of the LGBTQ plus intergroup. By the way, we say LGBTQ plus without the other letters because this is the official legislative way that the Commission of the European Union uses. I look like a man. I am white. I'm Christian. I come from a privileged household. I don't have any disability. I have a good education. My name is very German. I'm heterosexual, and I feel right in the body that I was born with. The only discrimination that I suffer in my life is when I'm on vacation and I tell the people that I'm German and they ask me if I like Hitler. The last time it happened here in the Parliament, some years ago. I'm not here because I suffer discrimination. I'm here because I strongly believe that there's discrimination against anyone in society, that this is a very violation of the idea of freedom, of dignity, and of human rights, and the enlightenment that every human being deserves. I am your ally. And I'm also not here because I know everything about the UK, but I am here because I see a pattern in democracies in Europe and worldwide. A pattern in which LGBTQIA+ rights are being defended only when it fits a nationalistic narrative. A pattern where we are told that we must choose between safety and solidarity, between queerness and complexity. let me be very clear, we do not have to choose here. This pattern, which I would like to shed some light on, is called Islamophobic homo-nationalism. Across Europe, we see the rise of homo-nationalism. The cynical use of LGBTQIA+ rights as a marker of national superiority, as a weapon against minorities. In Germany, nearly twice as many gay men support the far-right AfD compared to the rest of the LGBTQIA+ community. In Austria, over 30% of queer voters support the far-right FPÖ in the last election, a party that opposes what it calls gender ideology and queer brainwashing. In France, 70% of gay and bisexual men backed the Rassemblement National. In the Netherlands, LGBTQI+ rights are being used to define Dutchness in opposition to Muslim migrants. This is not a fringe phenomenon, it's a structural distortion of our movement. Is it the rainbow flag turned into a border? And it divides us. It pushes queer Muslims out of the community. It tells trans asylum seekers that they are not safe. It creates hierarchies of legitimacy, where being gay and white and secular makes you visible, and being queer and Muslim and migrant makes you a suspect. Islam belongs to Europe, and so do queer Muslims. In Germany, some of our largest immigrant communities are Arab and Turkish, and here in the UK, one of the largest communities is Pakistan. All three of them are traditionally Muslim communities. They are not foreign groups. They are our neighbors, our classmates, our colleagues. Their faith is part of our society and must be part of our movement. We must say clearly, secularism is a value of Europe, but not a condition for dignity. We must stop using LGBTQIA+ rights as a tool to police borders. Instead, let us build bridges with queer people of faith, with modern Muslim scholars, with communities that want dialogue, not division. Let us stop blaming religion for what is actually patriarchy and authoritarianism. Let us demand that all communities, religious or not, respect queer lives. But let us also remember that the call for human rights uses power when it's selective. Because what happens when the far rights win? What happens when they successfully use the fear of Muslim migrants to build on the narrative? Some say we must choose the lesser evil. Some say the progressive camp is too soft on religion. I say, look at the United States. Look at Hungary. Look at Russia. Look what happens to queer rights when the far rights win. Trans healthcare? Gone. LGBTQIA+ education? Gone. Pride March? Gone. In the UK, as we already heard, the Supreme Court just ruled that the sex means the biological sex. But it's not a legal clarification, which I as a jurist strongly oppose. It is a political regression. The UK dropped from number 1 to number 16 in the European LGBTQIA+ rankings in under a decade. So, no, the danger is not just out there, it's here, right now. We are only as free as the most vulnerable around us. We must understand that this is one of the front lines of modern democracy. This is where rights are being tested. This is where solidarity matters. To be queer is to know what exclusion feels like. To be progressive is to never reproduce that feeling in others. Let us build a movement that does not turn fear into borders. Let us be kind of allies, the kind of allies who listen, who learn, and who love without a condition. Let us not give the fight for tolerance as a tool to those who seek an intolerant society. Because in the end, we are only as free as the most vulnerable around us. And freedom means nothing if we cannot love. To love